The growing retail recession. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I've got my stein of coffee and I thought we would go through this article written by Jason Murphy from news.com.au just asking why so many retailers have gone bust. It seems like every day I'm doing another video about another retailer that's gone under. And if you're following the insolvency notices from the ASIC, the Australian Security Investment Commission, you'll see lots and lots of businesses are having trouble. A lot of construction ones actually I notice when I'm looking at it. So let's go through this, guys. The killing season. Why so many retailers have gone bust? So what do you think, guys? Do you think it's the internet? Do you think it's businesses not able to adapt? Do you think it's people saving more and just not spending money? Before we jump into it, let us know what your theories are in the comments below. So it's only January and already there've been a stack of retailers go bust and thousands at risk of losing their jobs. But that could be just the start. So what's going on in retail? January is supposed to be a respite. The first month of the year is not usually a big time for retail insolvencies. In fact, with Christmas spending money keeping them afloat, January is traditionally the quietest month for retailers going broke. That makes a lot of sense. But in 2020, the killing season appears to be here early, and it is taking down big names. Harris Scarfe went into December. And if that wasn't enough for you, Jeans West raised its hand in January, admitting it was all over. Well, they're in liquidation. They might be able to turn it around. They might. Between the two of them, around 3,000 jobs are at risk. Women's clothing retailer Bardot went into administration even earlier, and is now at the point where it is closing stores. Most retailers have not come clean yet about Christmas trading, but several who have admit it wasn't good. That suggests 2020 could bring a lot more insolvencies. As the next graph shows, February usually brings a lot more retail busts than January. The ugly January we're having is a grim portent for the year ahead. So let's have a look. There, look at that. January and then Feb. January, Feb, shooting up. January, Feb. Is January almost the lowest in each year? That's worrying, isn't it, guys? That really is. So what is entering administration? Administrators are experts who take over companies that are broke. Their job is to salvage something out of the mess. That would be a tough role. What they do is get together everyone who is owed money and to try to agree on a plan. The plan usually involves cutting costs by closing stores and trying to sell off the remaining business. Sometimes a buyer can be found and sometimes it can't. We saw that with the Curious Planet that I discussed a few days ago from the Co-op bookshop. They couldn't find a buyer for that arm of the business, so they have to shut it down. I mean, a lot of people are surprised that anyone would buy that. I guess if you could revamp it, but maybe the confidence just isn't there for retail anymore, for knickknacks and educational things. A company that goes broke usually has a lot of debts. The big advantage an administrator has is once a company is in administration, not all debts are equal. Some people will get their full money, others will not. This is the thing too. And often the banks, they've got security. They're the first ones in line with cap in hand. That's why if you're an unsecured creditor with a business, you're taking on that risk. You're taking on that risk. As a small business, if you give someone a 40-day invoice, you're giving them unsecured credit for 40 days. So you come after everyone else in the debts of that business. And this is why the subbies, whenever these big construction companies go down, it's the subbies will often cop it pretty hard. And it's, because they're worse than architecture, because they're carrying, gotta fix my collar here, they're carrying all of the cost of their materials as well as just their staff. And we can see here one of the issues as well, but going back to the Co-op bookshop, there was an advance payment for stock that wasn't on the shelves that went to a business owned by one of the directors. So that was really, they were treated unfairly. And what can happen is the administrators can come back and claw that money back from that person, sue that person to get the money back, and then redistribute it. So that's how, these things can work out. So staff payment are the highest level of debt, so they get paid first. Then bank loans get paid. Suppliers are usually at the back of the list. And when administrators take over, tradies and other people who supplied things to Gene's West might find their best option is to agree to get a few cents back for every dollar they were owed. That's the thing. You may be only getting cents in the dollar to your debt. So say you got a 40 grand invoice outstanding, and you probably only get 3 or 4 cents for every buck. That's what happens, guys. Buttons and tips. There's one thing that retailers who've gone broke have in common. They're selling clothing. Clothing is an extremely tough market because we've come to expect clothes to be really, really cheap. I remember paying around $70 for a pair of jeans in the 1990s. I'd expect to pay the same now, or more likely less. This is partly because cotton farming has gotten efficient and the price of cotton has barely changed in 30 years. But mostly because cutting and hemming has moved to low-wage places. Even China is too expensive to make most clothes these days, and the sewing machine jobs have moved to Bangladesh. Here's a graph of the clothing price inflation over the past few decades compared to food inflation. The difference is spectacular. So the clothing index was twice as high as food in the 1970s and rising fast. Then it suddenly stopped. In a way, this is great. It means everyone can clothe themselves these days. Poverty doesn't mean wearing rags anymore. And, well, yeah, that's a very good point to make. A very good point to make. And here you go, look at clothing. Clothing items that we have now, compared to hundreds of years ago, normal clothing for average people, much more advanced, much higher quality, much more robust. I mean, this is one of my t-shirts I got from Kathmandu. It's definitely more expensive, but a quick dry number, but they last me for years. Only problem is when you go keto and lose a whole lot of weight, but that's probably a good reason to be changing clothes. So have a look at food inflation. Food's gone up. Is this why everyone is finding food is getting more expensive? And I mean, Rachel makes her own clothes. It's just not worth it some of the time, particularly for the kids, because you can get them so cheap. So on the other hand, with low prices, we buy more clothes. That's helpful for clothing retailers, but low prices mean low margins, and that's tough, especially when competition gets intense. Not everyone can survive. Who's next? Australia simply has a lot of clothing retailers, not only major brands like Just Jeans, Country Road and Cotton On. There's also Politics, Suzanne, Tarot Cash, Dangerfield and many more. They're familiar to anyone who has ever wandered around a shopping centre. But right now, competition is intense. Kmart and Target are selling basics really cheaply. The Iconic and ASOS are providing latest in-fashion forward choices online. And Unique is dominating the middle, selling reasonable quality plain clothing to mainstream dorks like me. Uniqlo, I can't even pronounce it. Sales in Australia jumped from 245 million 2 years ago to 305 million last year. I used to browse places like Just Jeans, not anymore. 2020 is shaping up to be a killing season for retail, especially clothing retail. The only remaining question is, who's next? So, I mean, here we have it, guys. An interesting take from Jason Murphy, particularly the insight that January is meant to be the quiet month for retail, and we are seeing so many retailers. This retail recession is just continuing, and the problem is, the real danger of this is the number of people that are working in these industries. 10% of the workforce is in the retail sector. And if that will put pressure on other parts of the economy, if it'll flow through. Because remember, people in retail, they spend money as well, they pay their mortgage as well, they have other costs as well, they hire the rest of us as well. So it just flows through. Let me know what your take is on this. Where do you buy your clothing, and how often do you go clothes shopping? I would say I usually do Boxing Day, but I didn't even bother this year. I've been really quite slack quite slack. I think I've bought some cheap stuff from Kmart. You know, I'm wearing it to death. It's one of the advantages actually of working from home. Working from home, I don't need to dress up as much anymore. And yes, I am actually wearing pants when I'm recording these videos, guys. Okay, so it's all good. And maybe, you know, relaxing shorts and thongs, but hey, it's Queensland. Take care, guys. Let me know what your opinion in the comments below. And like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you want to help, I'm doing the intro again. If you want to help support the channel, we have a Patreon where you can make a small monthly donation. We also have the ability for you to join the channel here on YouTube. We have affiliate links with Independent Reserve for all the crypto traders out there, for Amazon and eBay for your consumer purchases. And we have our very own merchandise, our own clothing line, pocket squares, handmade, that you can find on the HeiseSays website. And finally, PayPal if you want to make a donation that way. Thank you to everyone who's supporting the channel and the content we create. Have a great day, and I will talk to you later. Bye for now.